from delivering the first boba truck in the world, I believe, and then to delivering boba classes at SpaceX. I know you guys are definitely the innovators when it comes to boba, but that's just kind of touching the surface of it. And in this video, in this interview, I hope to kind of get into more of what's under the surface and more about your stories. So prior to doing that, can you just briefly introduce yourselves?
Yeah, of course. Well, thanks for having us here, first of all. My name's Stacey. I'm the CEO and founder of Milk and Tea.
I'm Christine. I'm a partner of Milk and Tea.
And my wife.
And for me, like the way that I found about milk and tea is that I've seen some of your videos before, but then I came into the shop like in Little Tokyo back in 2022. And even though it's just like that one time, right? I immediately told people like this is my favorite boba shop, because for me it's just like you deliver a great product, but in addition to that, what you do is like what you stand up for, right? And I believe I saw in one of the signs it was something about Asian owned, queer owned, and woman owned. And those are three very important things. And from your perspectives, I just want to highlight and maybe get into what those means to you and why you feel so proud about displaying that.
I think, when you like sign up for like a bank account or a credit card, and there's always all these like little check boxes around. You're like, are you Asian? Are you queer? And I'm like, I was always like, why do I have to tell, these big corporations like what I am or my identity? And I realized it's because it's a minority factor, right? So I'm like, well, how can I turn from being a minority to kind of having it work for me? So that's when we realized like being a minority is kind of badass. Like you don't really blend in with the crowd, you kind of stick out, and to have us, or to be able to kind of use that in our marketing was, I think, more powerful than what we thought it would be in the beginning. Because at first we were just like, yeah, we check all these boxes, cool, let's tell everyone. And then everyone was starting to say like, hey, that's me too. And we're like, oh shit, that's actually really powerful. So yeah.
Just having people relate to that was really important, just because we would get a lot of like, kind of like you, where everyone would be like, oh, this is so cool, like you guys are like queer, you guys run a business, you guys are women. And yeah, you never really think about it unless someone's like, I want to do that too. And then being able to set that example is pretty great.
And that's awesome. Like, and I think you definitely built a community, and that's for me as well. Like, your social media is amazing. Like, it's hilarious, it's authentic, it's you. And I don't know, it's something that it kind of lacks, right, in today's world, regardless if you're like a small business, you're a big corporation. So that's why like it's just kind of you definitely connected with a lot of different people, and you've achieved a lot of different things as well. Like, was there any moment in your career? Because I remember, I think I saw like the Boba Wasted collection. I remember seeing like different things like that. And but was there anything like where you're like, okay, like yeah, like this is pretty cool? And I know Stacey, you mentioned like badass. I think that's a perfect adjective for both of you. But was there any moment in both of your careers where you're like, okay, like this is dope, milk and tea, like we did that?
For me, it was definitely what started as just a product for me turned into more community based. And that wasn't something I was looking for in the beginning. In the beginning, all I just wanted was, a cool boba shop that I could hang out with and, have a safe space and not be judged. And it just kind of turned into so much more of a community kind of factor. And, everyone started identifying with us, and we started making friends, and, our customers were really awesome. But yeah, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be from the beginning.
I guess for me, that's very like humbling, because I was gonna say like community based, but I guess like on a bigger scale, being able to collab with certain companies and like even just like do the boba classes at like SpaceX, that was a really wow factor for me, just because we did collab with like vans in like during the pandemic. And sometimes when you're like so busy doing all these things, like wearing all these hats, you kind of forget all the cool things that you were able to do and all the cool people you met along the way. So for me, it was definitely the Vans collection, and then being able to like actually walk into SpaceX and then teach a bunch of like engineers how to cook boba while we were just like, this is so insane. Like, you guys are like maybe one of the smartest people in the world. And we're literally here teaching you guys how to like cook boba from like an induction burner in the middle of SpaceX.
Yeah, that was a pretty notable moment, I would
Yeah.
say.
Now I can only imagine that. Like it's just that's pretty surreal. I remember I think in one of your t-shirts or something like that, it said like support your local barista. And I feel like community is something that you champion, both of you. But I do want to ask, like, I don't know if a lot of people really know what goes into like a boba industry, like boba shop, a boba industry and stuff like that. Is there any insight that you'll be able to share about that? Like maybe something that might surprise like the general public or the general consumer.
I think a lot of people get into it for money, obviously. I don't think running a restaurant or any food and beverage is for the faint of heart. It takes a lot of resilience, patience. Some of that we are still trying to find ourselves, not gonna lie. But it's not easy. It looks like just a sugary drink, right? That people are like, oh wow, such high profit margins. But there's so much more that goes into it. And I'd be sitting here for hours telling you. But the basic thing is, yeah, it takes a lot of hard work and patience to open up any business.
I think there's one thing Stacey said, just getting into the business. So I joined much later, but she would always say something along the lines of like, don't do it for the money, do it because you love it. Otherwise, if you do it for the money, you just kind of like constantly chasing. It's just an endless chase, opposed to you doing it because you love it. It makes a whole difference, and it's just like a difference in demeanor and even just your motivation to keep going, opposed to like running out of fuel because you're literally just exhausted from just trying to like chase the cash.
100%. And I think both you and Christine and Stacey, like you said that the passion, like being authentic, doing it because you love it, it's like the passion, right? And it shows, right? Like in what you do and how you deliver things. Like I said, it's always like authentic to you. And like with this as well, like I remember I think last Pride or the year before, you mentioned about like, you know, replying to maybe like some negative comments and stuff like that. And I loved how like you definitely stood on business, right? For that, like I just want to also talk about that because even in like talking about franchising, talking about anything that you do, it's like, you know, we're a proud queer-owned business. We support the LGBTQ plus community, right? And we want to make sure that always gets reflected. Like I think you've always established that. What advice would you give to others in that community that are trying to be their own entrepreneurs, or even consumers that may be looking to supporting LGBTQ plus community, and why it's important to do it besides just like June?
I love that you touched on the comments. Honestly, when we got a negative comment based because of our LGBTQ stance or just because of our identity, what used to hurt me in the beginning, now I get kind of happy because I'm like, oh, you want to play games? Let's go. Not only does it provide content for us, because then we repost it, because that's just the type of company we are. We like to put them on blast. But I know there's a lot of companies out there that kind of are like, you know, oh no, if I respond to this, you know, what if I have clients or customers who don't feel that type of way and they'll unfollow me? But I just always remind ourselves that even if we lose followers because of how we respond to something, it just means that those aren't the customers for us, and that's not the demographic that we're looking for. So even if we drop down to 40K followers because we said, hey, we support LGBTQ, you know, initiatives and stuff, that's fine, because those weren't the followers or customers we wanted in the first place. So I think just sticking to your beliefs and not necessarily bending over backwards for your customers is a really important, I guess, tactic to use throughout your business. So you just don't forget who you are or where you came from and why you're doing this.
To add on that, I think it also just like reinforces that like we started Milligan Tea as a safe space, and we continue to defend it as a safe space. So whoever like does not agree to that is just basically like we say everybody's welcome, but at the end of the day, if like you're not kind, if you're not open to just accepting people for who they are, then this is just like not the space for them.
There's another thing, another aspect that I also want to highlight as women entrepreneurs. I also feel like sometimes there's just like a weird um, negative connotation to that, right? I don't think people really understand kind of like the biases and stuff like that as well, especially how unequitable things can be. So I also want to ask about you, about your experience as women entrepreneurs, especially like investing into women owned businesses. Like, how has that made a positive impact for you? And maybe something that you can share to other women entrepreneurs.
Yeah. So something that Christine said, it's all about creating a safe space, right? So, little story for you in Beaverton, in our old store, in one of our walls, it had "run by women" in like huge letters. And I remember this guy came in, took a photo of that, gave us a 1 star on Yelp, and said, "This place only hires women." And everyone was laughing because, like, that's obviously not true. We have men on our team. And then so I have one of my employees, his name's Michael. He texts me and he's like, "I swear I'm not a woman." I'm just laughing, and we posted that on Instagram, and we respond to him. We're like, Michael swears he's not a woman. He identifies as male, so I don't know what you're talking about. We're run by women, as in we're owned by women, but we hire anyone who's qualified. So I went on a little bit of a tangent there, but it just reminded me of that story. But it's all about creating a safe space. That's basically what it is.
Yeah, I think what also comes from that is just like the community you build
Mhm.
around that. So we were able to build just like so many, or like, yeah, we were able to build like so many connections because of just being outward and being invited to like so many networking events where we were able to meet like other badass women who are just like taking the reins on things, and just
Yeah.
being able to learn from each other is what's super valuable, at least on my end and both our ends. I think we're just able to like uplift each other and just kind of like create an actual support system.
Yeah, and especially when we owned a food truck, like driving one of those things, whether you're male or female, is frightening if you don't have any experience.
So hard.
It's basically a giant UPS or like Amazon truck, right? But you have a kitchen in the back. So yeah, pots, pans, everything. You're cooking things back there. And there was this one time we parked, and our other business partner, Bea, she hops out of the truck. She's like 4'10" on a good day, and she hops out, and some guy goes, "No way are you driving that?" And she's like, "No, I just parallel parked. Like, yeah, there's no one else in there. I'm driving." And he's like, "No, like, where are the men?" And she's like, "We don't need men. Like, it's just us."
Yeah.
So I think a lot of people underestimate women and what they can do. I think sometimes they forget that they came out of their mom, and I don't think that was easy. There's a lot of pain involved in that, and women can do a lot more than what some men think.
100%. And yeah, my mom reminds me of that. Like, so no, for sure. And I do want to talk about something else, like, because in 2022 to now, a lot has changed. And I know I kind of talked about it maybe before as well, like how resilient both of you are, and how you're able to pivot in this, because C.H.I.P lifestyle, like C.H.I.P is an acronym that I use to describe my life and my perspective and my motto, which is challenging hardship into perspective. And I feel both of you do the same with milk and tea. Can we just maybe talk about that right now, about how things have changed, but you're still being able to find a positive perspective, and how you were able to do that?
I'm not gonna lie, it's been a tough year for both of us.
I was actually gonna say, like, first step one, cry, and then step two, get back on the horse.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. I mean, long story short, all of our brick and mortars are closed, right? Right now, as of Milk and Tea as a company, we are solely e-commerce and boba classes. And we do catering, so in-person catering, so weddings, birthday parties, corporate events, things like that. But our brick and mortars are closed, and it took me a really long time to realize that that's what I wanted. I would say 2015, we started the brand. It was all passion driven. I didn't care about money or anything like that. And it wasn't until 2020 when COVID hit where everything just kind of like turned 180. What was once passion just became pure survival. It turned into panic attacks, me figuring out, how am I going to keep all the staff, hired and not have to lay anyone off? How am I going to pay rent? I'm going to pay all these bills. What there was a month where we used to make 50,000, now we're making 10,000. Like, how are we going to survive? I don't see any way out of this. Obviously we made it through, but it wasn't without a lot of pain and suffering, like mental pain. So we got through that. 2022, our sales started picking up again, but the passion just wasn't there anymore. But the survival instincts stayed and the panic attacks stayed, but the passion was gone. So, through talking with Christine over the years, we came to realize that I just wasn't happy doing this anymore. And neither was Bea. She had found another passion in another business. So we had all just kind of like gone separate ways. And the business was obviously suffering. We weren't creating the social media content that you sort of see back like prior to 2020. If you did see us, we weren't as happy as we used to be. So that's when I made the decision, like, you know what, I really want to pursue real estate, commercial real estate. And I know it's going to be a hard path, but I don't think I can pursue real estate and physically own the stores. I just don't see that as being feasible. So we made the tough decision to close all the stores, despite whether or not they were profitable. Well, we sold the stores, and now we're here. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say a lot of pivoting definitely took a toll on us, like Stacey said, mentally. And there's kind of like no way of escaping that, especially with like through the pain. With a company, you just kind of have to keep going despite whether you want to or not, just because there's like so many other people that rely on you. And being able to be strong for so long, I think, especially on Stacey's end, at least, was very resilient of her. But that also takes a toll, like even massively. So being able to just kind of step away is, I think, one of the biggest challenges that we had to face, and just like the biggest truth we had to accept. And accepting that truth didn't mean that we just didn't want anything to do with milk and tea, because it is still alive. Like, although like most people think it's like dead, it's just a point where like even like badasses like have to rest and like have to reevaluate like what their priorities are. And right now we're trying to prioritize mental health and just kind of like take a step back and see like where we go from here.
Yeah, but that being said, we realized our Little Tokyo store wasn't performing as well as it was anymore. And we figured out that not only was Little Tokyo oversaturated with boba, like there's literally 15 other shops all in the area. I might be exaggerating a little bit, but there's a lot of shops. Yeah,
shops,
like we're right next to a gongcha. Nothing against gongcha, they're great, but like we're literally 10 feet away from them. That plus just our marketing wasn't there anymore. Like we weren't creating seasonal drinks or anything like that. So we realized that we needed to make a pivot because we still had some time left on our lease. And that's when we decided to franchise a Cafe 86. Definitely a lot different than owning your own brand. You now have to follow the rules and the regulations of a franchise. And that's something that we didn't really think too hard about, that we are now realizing and slowly figuring out. But we made the change. We're now at Cafe 86 in Little Tokyo, but we still have milk and tea as well.
First of all, I gotta say, like, I love how genuine you both are, because I think it takes a lot of courage to say all that stuff, especially when you mention how like it goes from passion to survival, two very different things, and sometimes something has to give. So I really do appreciate you being honest with that. Like, was there a point where you're like, okay, like I know like you still have milk and tea in that like the Cafe 86 and stuff like that, but is there some days where you're like, okay, like, you know what, I think this was for the best, this was like Like maybe like going to these classes, the boba classes, like because you mentioned your mental health, right? And prioritizing that because I think a lot of people don't realize, even for myself, like I'm like, all right, like sometimes I get so burnt out, right? And it's usually like, I'm not lying, like it's when I did that reel, right, about my milk and tea experience, and then you guys commenting and stuff like that. I was just like, dude, like that's what I like because it's like it was authentic, right? It was like real people, real thing, and that's what I wanted to do, like just actually help people, like those little moments, right? Even though it seems like very minimal or very small, in the scheme of things to me that means a lot. What for you, Stacey, being like in the real estate and you, Christine, really kind of facilitating everything, especially with the classes, was there those moments where you're like, okay, like I'm gonna use this to continue moving forward, right? And getting that new like positive perspective or that mindset? Like was there like any moments that stood out to you, like since that hard decision?
Yeah, I mean, I've only been in real estate for I think 7 months now, so I'm still very new to everything. I'm like a little noob in this world. Um, but because I specialize in tenant representation, I'm basically helping people sign leases or find spaces for their coffee shop or their dental office or whatever business that they have. And they always ask me for advice. They're like, do you think we need a sink here? Do you think we need a grease trap, a hood? And had I not had, 10 years of prior experience owning my own food and beverage, I wouldn't be able to assist them the way that I do now. So I think it's come full circle. I'm able to help people because of my experience. And it does give me joy that I'm able to do that. So yeah, even though I'm new, I think I have a big career ahead of me.
I believe that too. I was gonna say, I think for me on my end, what keeps me going is just like half the classes we teach, it's like sometimes I think it's ridiculous because people like literally book us to like teach them how to cook boba when they could like literally learn it on YouTube. But then you kind of like see the joy in people's faces as they're like learning about the cultural aspect and then just like the history and the shared culture that surrounds boba. So being able to like teach those classes, like educate people, but also like lead like a team, I feel like I've put myself in a position where it's consistently challenging, but in like good ways. So it also kind of like shows me what I'm made of. So every time we do book a class and we get like a really like great review, or even like someone reaches out and says like, hey, this was like the best class ever, it kind of makes me not take it for granted, because like we built this and like people are genuinely like wanting to book us because they like love us and they just like believe in us. So that's really reassuring on our end.
And I can't, let this interview conclude without asking you, what is your favorite boba drink? It doesn't have to be a milk and tea drink. It's just, favorite boba drink.
Yeah.
Oh, you want to go first?
I'm a very basic person. I think this is how I answer every single time someone asks me that. It's always green milk tea with boba, half sweet. That's no matter where I go. If there's a new spot that opens up, I have to get that because that's the base level for me. If you can't get that right, I don't know if your shop needs help or
Oh, okay.
that basic level of drink making, right?
So
Instead
you're
of
in the
that,
mindset.
tea. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew she was gonna say that. So
Yeah.
I'm more of a coffee person, I will say, but when it comes to boba, it's always gonna be like either just the classic like black milk tea for me, or even just like a Thai tea. It just always hits a spot, and like the sugar level's always like pretty great.
For sure, yeah. I think I'm more aligned with you, Christine. The Thai tea is like usually the kind of do the sweet tooth and everything.
For sure. It's really
Yeah. But the boyfriend though, that one fire. Like just like
have it. Yeah, we have it in Cap 86.
yeah, no, for sure. Like honestly, because I think you guys even went out to support Hypeland. Hypeland, the opening of that. I think I saw that too. And so if I do ever go back, I'm definitely gonna grab that because I love how it's like, you know what, like you guys take different flavors and mix it. And like yeah, it's just awesome. Like I think like the quality of what you get too. Like that's what I love about you guys. It's like, okay, you guys have an eye for everything. And like you're thinking of more about, the consumer and what they like instead of just what, helps the books. Before we wrap up, was there anything that you'd like to share with the audience? or readers because it's going to be on the blog post as well.
I mean, just like thank you for the constant support and like you yourself, Tagan. Is it Tagan?
Yeah, it's Tagan.
Oh, okay. You, Tagan, like constantly like reaching out that like I know that we take a while to like answer sometimes. Half the time it's like, oh God, like I did not answer his his message, but like constantly seeing you reach out was it meant a lot to us because it's like, okay, he really wants this. Like let's fill out the time and just like do it.
Yeah, yeah. No, we appreciate the opportunity to talk to you.
Yeah. It was finally getting to meet you.
For sure. No, like even like in December, I was trying to like, all right, like let me see like what I could do. And I'm like, you know what? Like I literally brought like all like the gear and stuff too. So I was just like, all right,
Oh no,
ready.
yeah,
But
so sorry about that.
nah, it's all good. I like honestly like with everything that you've gone through, I really appreciate you taking the time to really talk to me and do this. So I really am looking forward to it. And I know like this is gonna help some people and really like inspire people as well. So thank you so much. I really do appreciate it.